Geoff Mosher, FanRag Sports, at Geoff Mosher NFL on Twitter. A lot of good stuff that he writes this week after the Eagles lose to the Seahawks and now get ready for the Rams. One thing, Jeff, that you wrote about that I concur with is that game on Sunday night. A lot of people throwing the daggers at Doug Peterson, and I really thought the main culprit in that game, Peterson is a part of it, but there were still plays for Wentz to make, and he didn't make them. So if he makes those plays, Peterson's lack of aggression really isn't brought up.
Yeah, Mike, I think that Doug Peterson is often an easy target, and this comes down to likability. People like Carson Wentz, and for a good reason. He's got everything you'd want in a quarterback, so he's very – Doug is a head coach, and we talked about this even last year, right? You come from Andy Reid's tree. There was Andy League. You start off hot, then you lose a bunch of games in a row, and then there were really questionable decisions even in that last year, where Doug entered this year. It should have been more of a clean slate because he really didn't have much to work with outside of Carson. And even when he's 1-1, people are killing him. He was 2-1 after the Giants game. People are, right? So I think when they lose a game like this, everybody says, "Oh, Doug got soft. Doug was timid. Doug was conservative." And the bottom line is they lost because Carson turned the ball over twice, two really bad times, obviously going into the end zone, which represented a 14-point swing. And he missed some throws, Nelson Aguilar. They didn't, had a couple of chances to get Russell Wilson hitting the flip. So do I think Doug coached a perfect game? No, but a lot of his decisions, like punting right before the half, I didn't disagree with. I thought it was a smart decision, and I think if Carson makes a bunch of different plays in the first half, the game. And Mike, you know this. I think that I don't know. I think there's some sociology in this. I think that we, as a city, as a fan base, media, whatever, we're almost afraid out when Carson plays. We're afraid of the whole Philadelphians again. Burying their quarterback and everything like that. Carson made two of the greatest throws I've ever seen a quarterback make. And I have no problem saying that and saying that he's still a great quarterback in second half outside of that fumble. But he left points on the board in the first half, and that's undeniable.
Well, and it's the old theory. When you're the quarterback and you're an MVP candidate, that means you get a lot of praise. But the day that you don't play very well and your team loses, you better expect to be at the top of that list as to the criticism. And I don't think it's unfair for people to say, look, Carson just didn't play his best game. He still played well, but he had a couple of plays he didn't make. And if he makes those plays, this is probably a mute conversation. I mean, quite frankly, if he makes the two throws to Aguilar, we might be talking about a team that's 11-1 right now.
I totally think so. I mean, again, you look at the yards. The Eagles had 425 yards in Seattle. It's the second most anybody's put up this year outside of that crazy Houston game that Deshaun Watson was healthy and everything. I think Carson became the first quarterback in a long time to go up there and have 345 yards and 86 passer rating and complete 64% of his passes. They did good things offensively for a lot of the game, just not in really crucial moments. And what really gets me is when someone says, and I've had this argument, on my own shows a lot, is that people will say, well, no, Doug coached conservatively. Doug didn't draw up a plan to attack Byron Maxwell. And I say, how can you say that? Every play that the Eagles run usually has 4 or 5 options. If Carson chooses to throw it to Torrey Smith for 6 yards, it doesn't mean the play call. It doesn't mean there weren't receivers out there running 10 and 20-yard routes. It's not like Doug just put in every single play that Doug put in, all 5 options ran 5 to 8 yard routes, and he was scared of going deep. That's Carson's call.
Geoff Mosher with us. Jeff, where did you fall on the criticism or not criticism in that of Doug Peterson on what looked like the illegal forward lateral? Because I was watching the game on television, right, and they show the play at live speed. I thought, that was close, but geez, what a play, right? Then they start to replay it, and it's like the Zapruder film. They have the advantage of going through frame by frame and slow motion and all that stuff. And I hear Al Michaels say, like, oh, he should have challenged that. I thought, great. Now the entire Eagles fan base is going to be up in arms, yelling at Doug Peterson for why did he challenge it. And I laughed when he came out and said, like, I don't have protractors and angles, and, I have to make the decision in real time. Where did you fall on that play?
Well, I fell on that I think he should have challenged it, Pete, and his rationale was that he lost one earlier in the first half, which was weird because I think a lot of us felt that he didn't lose it justifiably. Right. He should have gotten it. And but anyway, he let that kind of govern that second decision on whether he shouldn't have done it. And I think that is a very difficult play to pull off, the lateral and not have it forward. And it's so close there that I think that you've got to know as a coach that that's a really difficult play to pull off in full speed without having the ball go forward and leave it in the hands of the officials to kind of make that. I tend to think it would have been overturned, and I think he should have thrown the flag.
Since we were talking about Wentz, too, and now this week, of course, the storyline will be Wentz versus Goff. I saw a lot of people talking about how Goff is a more accurate thrower of the football. He's a more technically sound thrower of the football. Do you agree with those comments? And if you were the GM, which guy would you pick, Wentz or Goff?
I haven't seen. I've seen Goff a couple of times this year. I know his accuracy has been good. He's made some tremendous plays. I think what would make me separate Carson Wentz and say that's the guy is that when you read about what they do out there in LA, it's very, I don't want to say collegey because everyone does some collegey stuff, but they purposely get the play call in fast. Then they look at the defense, and then they purposely look at Sean McVay, and he changes the call based on the defense, which in itself is nothing odd or strange. But that's the difference between Jared Goff, who plays second fiddle on offense to what his head coach wants, and Carson Wentz, who's the opposite. The head coach has given Carson the autonomy to, from Monday through Saturday, go through a list of plays that are going to work well for him and for different looks that he sees. And then on Sunday, it's like, here you go, kid. Here's the keys. There's the Porsche. Go drive it. You've got the whole see it, take it approach. So I always say Carson's the offensive coordinator. Frank Reich, he's nice and all, but he doesn't call plays. Doug calls plays. Yeah. Carson calls plays, right? Obviously, it's not that case in L.A. where Jared doesn't have that same autonomy and reflects more positively on what Carson does.
Geoff Mosher, FanRag Sports, writes about the Eagles. Follow him on Twitter at Geoff Mosher NFL to see where else you can find him. And, Jeff, you wrote about the running back conundrum. It's a cute, fun story when it's going well. But when it's not going well, it all of a sudden changes into, well, someone's got to be the guy. I want to carry the ball, 15, 17, 20 times. I got to get in my rhythm. That's the one side of the argument. When it's working well, man, you're keeping these guys fresh. And boom, because they're fresh, they hit the hole. So how does Doug Peterson manage this? Is there a guy that he should start as we hit December, start to lean towards more?
It's a great question, Mike. And it's not even about starting. It's who should get the ball more, really. And I don't know how you can watch the Eagles over the last 3, 4, 5 weeks and not, ever since the trade, and not at least want it deep down inside to see Ajayi get the ball a little bit more. I mean, he's come here, he's played, I think, 4 games now, and in 3 of the 4, he's had runs of 30 yards, 70 yards, and 50 yards. So he's obviously a more explosive runner. He himself has said that, and he's not complained, but he's just said, I'm like a lot of running backs. I get better the more carries you give me. But right now he's averaging 7 carries a game. The problem is that Doug Peterson has, if anything, really proven that he is a great communicator, and he's been very honest and upfront with his team, right? And he's gained his team's trust by being that way, even in the face of fan criticism. He called LeGarrette Blount on the day of the trade and said, look, we're bringing this guy in, but you are still my guy. LeGarrette has incentives in his contract that, he can reach and probably make more money. If Doug were to all of a sudden make Jay Ajayi the guy here over the next 4 games and really relegate LeGarrette Blount's status, well, now he's gone back on his word. Now he's not the Doug Peterson that he's been all year, and yet it still might be the better move for the team. So I don't know how he does it, guys, but I do think in the playoffs, all bets are off. The regular season's over. Incentives don't matter in your contract. Wouldn't surprise me if the playoffs is when you really start to see a little bit more of a changeover to more Ajayi than LeGarrette Blount.
Okay, Geoff Mosher writes about the running backs at FanRag Sports. Follow him at Geoff Mosher NFL. And, of course, every Thursday with us on the Sports Bash. Thanks, Mosh. Take care, bud.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a good one.